Prinku, start please.
Yes, I start. Yeah, last week we discussed about the case. It was of a 19-year-old male patient who had come with voiding symptoms for 3 years with pain while voiding. There was also an associated history of ejaculation since the onset of puberty. So, however, the patient had normal sexual characteristics like erection, orgasm, and desire. There was no history of any significant complaints previously, like any surgery.
No, there was no significant history. That will do.
Okay, sir.
History.
Yes, sir. However, patient has got some previous surgical history. So he had a history of right-sided undescended testis, which was diagnosed sometime around 2017, and he had undergone orchidopexy at that time. Along with that, some prosthetic swelling was also diagnosed, which has not been described in details. Maybe documents are not available. Then patient again had developed those obstructive voiding symptoms, and in 2019 he again seek medical and surgical care. At that time he was diagnosed with prosthetic cyst, and he underwent transurethral deroofing of the cyst. However, the problem remained, and patient continued to develop the symptoms again, and has now currently been referred to the present hospital scenario. On further evaluation, in history, the patient does not have any significant family or personal history. When the patient was examined, he had a normal findings on general examination and systemic examination. However, on the digital rectal examination, the patient had a finding of firm cystic swelling in his prostate. So then he was subjected to evaluation with an uroflowmetry and RGO MCU, where uroflowmetry showed slightly abnormal.
Okay, we have finished that part of the discussion.
Yes.
Where we had stopped was with that large cyst in the prostate.
Yes.
Right? Which was like a cavity, large cyst in the prostate. And we had started discussing the embryology of the male genital tract and the urinary tract. Right? Yes. Who's discussing this from Dispur?
Sir, Priyanku, sir.
Priyanku, you're discussing. Okay. So, Priyanku, yes, now you have to tell us, how does the urinary tract develop in the male?
Yes.
That's the crux that we wanted to discuss.
Okay, sir. Sir, the urinary tract, sir, it develops around 5 to 7 weeks, sir, from the of gestation. Sir, actually the tract, if we describe about the genital origin, sir, the testes develops.
Don't mix up the two.
Yes, sir.
Weeks and epochs are okay.
Okay, sir.
Tell us about the embryological development or the embryonic development of the urinary tract up to the time that the tract is complete or incomplete. Ditto for the genital tract and the factors which influence the differentiation of the genital tract. To begin with, the urinary tract.
So the urinary tract develops from the urogenital sinus.
No. Your kidney develops from the urogenital sinus?
No, sir. So kidney develops as a sequential.
Where does it develop? Where in the embryo does a rudimentary kidney develop from?
So pronephros.
Right.
Pronephros, mesonephros,
where is it?
Metanephros. Sir.
Where is the pronephros? Where is the metanephros? Where is the mesonephros? Where are all of them? Where do they come from?
Sir,
will someone help him out in this part?
Yes.
You're all supposed to read. That's why a week was given to you.
Kidneys develop from the pelvis and ascend, sir.
Come on now. That is not how embryology is described, Kamal. We have the ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm, the three embryologic tissues. So now in terms of those embryologic tissues and the location of the primitive structures and condensations of these embryological tissues, you have to trace the development of the kidney and the urinary tract.
It's from the mesoderm, sir.
Where is the mesoderm?
Intermediate mesoderm, sir.
Where is the intermediate mesoderm? See, there are definite names for that, correct?
Okay, sir.
There is something called the paraxial mesoderm, right?
Paraxial.
On either side of the developing notochord.
Notochord.
Right? What happens in the paraxial mesoderm?
Sir, there is a gradual migration of the somites from the paraxial mesoderm, sir, which first gives rise to the developing pronephros, which is a rudimentary kidney.
Okay.
Initially, in the first stage, it is the pronephros which starts as the excretory system. Gradually,
how does it begin as excretory system? You know, I'm sorry, I'm taking you into such detail because when you write theory, you'll have to write all this. The paraxial mesoderm differentiates into tubules, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, how many tubules are there in the pronephros? Unless you write all this, you will lose a lot of marks. You get it?
Yes, sir.
So it begins with some 3 to 5 tubules, correct?
3 to 5, yes, sir.
And then what happens? Those are the first excretory structures.
Yes, sir.
Then what happens?
Sir, after that, pronephros starts to degenerate, sir, and mesonephros starts to develop, sir.
In relation to the pronephros, where is the mesonephros?
Sir, I don't think Priyanko is
equipped for it. No, anybody else can take it. Manish.
No, what I was suggesting is why don't you ask Priyanko to come back with a presentation next week on this, sir?
Okay, fine. So next week we will have a presentation on the embryology of the genitourinary tract. Okay, Priyanko?
Yes.
You will make that presentation. That will be what we will discuss next week. Okay, now let us proceed with what we've got. Now we've got this huge cystic space in the prostatic urethra.
Yes.
Which we think is causing all the symptoms the patient has got. Right? He's got voiding symptoms, he's got storage symptoms, right? And in addition, he also has got an ejaculation. What is this? What could this cystic structure be? Actually, you know, Manish, this is where the whole thing began last time, isn't it? Yeah, we'll proceed from here, right?
Yes. So they were supposed to read both embryology and...
Correct.
Yes.
Sir, it could be origin from prostate, sir.
Okay.
Then it could be...
We are not, Priyanko.
Yes, sir.
This is already in the prostate.
Yeah.
Correct? Yes. So what is the differential diagnosis of cystic structures in the prostate?
Prostatic utricle cyst, it can be. It can be a Mullerian duct cyst.
What else? supposing this patient had presented with a history of severe perineal pain, high-grade fever, difficulty in passing urine, which suddenly got relieved after he passed something which he couldn't see at night, and then everything came down. His urine appeared a little thick in the morning, and then gradually he improved and everything came down.
Can it be some calculus in the prosthetic urethra, sir?
Why will the calculus be cystic?
Oh, cystic.
Can something leave a cavity in the prostate? Can any inflammatory condition leave a cavity in the prostate? Sometimes we deliberately leave that cavity while managing an inflammatory condition surgically. Have you heard of prostatic abscess?
Yes.
When a prostatic abscess drains, it leaves behind a cavity, whether it is surgical drainage or spontaneous drainage into the urethra, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's another differential diagnosis. Appropriate or not appropriate to this patient, we'll see. What else can it be? You saw the endoscopic appearance. The walls were nice and smooth.
Yeah.
It did not look like something which was a product of acute inflammation or chronic inflammation. So what structures can have this smooth wall, large cavity, typically producing voiding symptoms?
So in the bladder, sir, or in the
prostate? In the prostate. We are discussing what we saw on endoscopy.
Yes. It is a cystic cavity, sir, with communication.
I know. So what could it be? See, the cystic cavity is our appearance.
Yes.
Correct. Diagnostically, what could it be? Anybody else?
He wants to know differential diagnosis of cystic swellings in that condition, in that area.
Sir, it could be urethral diverticulum, sir.
Okay, what else?
What else can it be?
Seminal vesicle cyst communicating in the prostatic urethra.
Seminal vesicle cyst communicating in the prostatic urethra. You mean it has burst? The seminal vesicle cyst has burst and communicating in the prostatic urethra, or? I guess if we stretch anatomy and pathology to such an extent, maybe 1 in a 2 million cases or something.
Mullerian duct cyst, it can be, sir, or
Yes.
prostatic utricle cyst.
Yes.
Can it be any other Mullerian pathology? Which typically presents at this age.
What are the structures which are derived from the Mullerian system?
This,
What, man? What?
mainly in the females, sir. In the males, they degenerate to form some appendages, sir. In the female, it forms the fallopian tube, uterus, and uterine cervix, sir. However, in males, the remnant forms testicular appendage, sir.
In women, what does it form?
fallopian tubes, uterus, cervix, and upper part of the vagina, sir.
Correct. So supposing there is some glitch in the differentiation, part of it develops as a male, part of it develops or persists as a female, what could this structure be? What female structure could this be, which appears like a cavity?
Cervix.
Sir, he has already said prostatic uretical cyst, sir. The first DD he gave.
My memory is not that bad, Kamal.
We know that. He's apart from this, we are asking. He's asking.
What is this persistent Mullerian duct syndrome? You see, the persistence of the Mullerian system in the male can take several forms, starting from a small cystic structure to a uterus-like structure, which is a full-blown uterus-like structure with the same capacity as a uterus would have, and into which urine keeps going and creating problems, and which grows large enough to also cause voiding symptoms. So whenever we see a large cyst in the prostate, we have to consider that also.
Persistent. Yes, sir.
So how do we know whether it is that or whether it's one of those utricular cysts or prostatic cysts?
Sir, Mullerian ducts, if it is abnormality from Mullerian duct, then it is ideally very large.
You know, you
would not be just limited to voiding.
How do you identify tissue characteristics histologically? How do you know that it is kidney tissue? How do you know it is uterine tissue? How do you know it is liver tissue? Each structure in the human body has got hallmark of histological features, isn't it? So,
sir, Mullerian duct, it will have glandular tissue, sir, on histology. And in case of urethral part, if it is from the urethra, then it will have transitional epithelium-like histology. Kidney tissue, again, will show some separate histological features, like.
So, just like saying that a kidney which is dysplastic, just a nubule of kidney tissue, how will they identify that this is kidney tissue? Even if it is lousy tissue, there is some feature. The same way, if there is a uterus, there is some feature there which will suggest to the pathologist that yes, there is something that looks like endometrium. It is just that it is not functional endometrium, and therefore you won't get all those whorls and all that which you get in endometrial tissue. It's a histological feature. The same training of this same called prostatic cyst that you see will have a different epithelium. If it grows and grows, as Mohan was talking about, to incorporate more of the Mullerian structures, then naturally that epithelial lining will have something. Okay. So carry on. What are you going to do for this chap? You got large cyst there.
So in this case, we have to proceed for excision of the cyst, either transurethral or.
What is the idea of operating on this cyst?
Sir, sorry, sir.
What is your basic idea when you want to treat? What is your plan? You know, you got this fellow with this problem. He's not able to ejaculate. That is why Prabhu asked that question in the theory about ejaculation, isn't it?
Yes.
Typically with the idea that when this case is discussed today, they will focus on those issues. There is a fellow who cannot ejaculate from birth, as far as I remember the story, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. But there were other features like this. I mean, there were days when he could ejaculate, isn't it?
Yes.
When he used to masturbate, he will ejaculate something. He's an unmarried fellow.
No, he couldn't ejaculate even when he masturbated.
Is that right?
That was his problem. He had orgasm, but no masturbation.
Okay, right. He had orgasm, correct. Yes, he had orgasm, but no masturbation. No similarity. Right.
If the patient has orgasm and normal sexual desire, so we have to think of an anatomical obstruction, which can be which will lead to bilateral ejaculatory duct obstruction. If he does not have orgasm or other features, then we have to think of some other systemic conditions.
No,
So
Priyanku,
yes,
with
sir.
respect to what you have seen, what all of us have seen here,
Yes.
why is he not able to ejaculate? And is that the reason why we want to operate or surgically deal with this cystic structure? Is it because he cannot ejaculate?
Yes.
It means that if we operate, he'll be able to ejaculate after that.
Yes, sir, because it is a large cyst, sir, which is causing an obstruction at the both the opening of the ejaculatory duct at the level of the.
How do we
pheromone
diagnose ejaculatory duct obstruction clinically?
If he is having a painful orgasm, sir, painful.
Clinically, no. Think about it again. Patient has not complained of anything. He's come to you with infertility.
Yes.
One of the things we have to rule out is ejaculatory duct obstruction.
Obstruction.
And we have to first evaluate him clinically. Can we make a clinical diagnosis of ejaculatory duct obstruction?
Yes, sir.
How? Bedside clinical examination or any specialized clinical examination?
Sir, transrectal ultrasound. to
Can't
detect
diagnose
any-
it at the bedside?
Transrectal ultrasound, sir.
No. Can we not detect it clinically during a bedside examination? In fact, many a time, the decision on how to manage infertility is taken on the basis of this clinical finding. The transrectal ultrasound is something the luxury we acquired 20, 30 years ago. But the
Yes.
treatment of infertility surgically has gone on for at least half a century. So, can we diagnose this?
Bedside will examine the vas is palpable or not. Second,
Was will be palpable. If it's not palpable, then there is agenesis.
agency. Second thing, sir, epididymis we will see, is it tense? Is it enlarged?
So typically, we palpate the cord to feel for the vas and the epididymis to
Yes,
see whether they are turgid,
yes.
right? Which is how we diagnose that there could be a ejaculatory duct obstruction. There is azoospermia and a turgid vas and epididymis. And then we might do an ultrasound, we might do whatever else, right? How many ejaculatory duct obstructions are due to visible cysts on endoscopy or even on transrectal ultrasound? Is it very common? Is it somewhat common? Is it uncommon? Very rare? Not known? Anybody can answer this.
Sir, uncommon, sir.
What is uncommon?
The cyst causing ejaculate duct obstruction.
Yeah, it is uncommon. Most of the times when we do a truss, we find that there is dilatation of the ejaculatory duct up to its termination. We don't find a cyst. Sometimes we find a cystic structure or a midline cystic structure, and then we say, oh yes, this must be the problem. Okay, so Priyanku, clinical examination is a must.
Yes, sir.
They reported in this patient that epididymis was normal on both sides. Well, operating on this cyst confer benefits in terms of this anejaculation and azoospermia.
Yes, sir, I think so.
What will tell us that yes, he will benefit? Or do we just operate and wait and see whether he does? In which case he'll come back and say, what's it, doctor, you made me spend so many thousands and I'm still not ejaculating. Anybody?
Sir, after decompression of the cyst, we have to do vasography, sir, to check the patency of the.
How do we decide that vasography can be done?
So, if symptom doesn't relieve after the decompression of the cyst.
But still, does that mean that we can do vasography in all cases? Is it possible that we may not be able to do vasography?
Yes, sir.
What would be the reason? I think you guys should have a session with Dr. Pramod.
Yes,
See, we can do vasography if the opening can be identified and cannulated. The problem that we encounter very often in cases of large cysts, repeated infected cysts, or distortion of the prostatic urethra due to the cyst is we can't find the opening in the prostatic urethra.
I thought he was talking about scrotal vasography and not endoscopic. What was meaning endoscopic vasography or opening the scrotum and cannulating the vas from there? What did you mean by vasography?
So both is possible, sir. Both can be done depending on
Kamal, which do you want to do?
Which is the one that you were meaning? You just said vasography.
So I meant transurethral, sir. Cannulating and
Transurethral, right?
because problem is
Difficult. It is exceedingly difficult to do transurethral vasography. Most of the time, you fluke it. The recommendation is that nowadays, of course, people stop doing vasography. But for infertility workup, if you look at the old articles by Peter Worth and all that was a standard thing. It was an operative vasography. In fact, even when we would do epidermovasostomy or you would do a vasal reversal, you would always cannulate the part and make sure that it was patent. And then you would inject some methylene blue into that and then see whether the catheter was stained blue, urine was stained blue. This would indicate to you that yes, that whole vas and that system is patent.
yes, sir.
So the only drawback of the vasography was that if you did it as an investigative tool, you might land up actually producing a narrowing of the vas. And therefore, it was done as an intraoperative and to proceed. Whatever you want to do, you then proceeded with a definitive plan, a treatment plan. when you had this operation. Now, of course, the vasography is being relegated to the last pages of infertility treatment. Very unusual to do it.
Sir, in this case, if we cannot, it is difficult to identify the opening, then it can be done.
No. Basic issue here is this patient had a cyst which was deroofed. Isn't it? Endoscopically
Yes.
deroofed.
Yes.
This patient from time immemorial has had an ejaculation and painful orgasm. It was hoped that deroofing the cyst will solve the problem. Hasn't it? That's what is the hope, I guess.
That was done, yes.
And it was done. But it has not solved the problem, has it? We are now presenting with the same thing. He's now presenting after the cyst deroofing with this. So we haven't done anything good for him. Therefore, the issue arises therefore whether this cyst deroofing was actually necessary in the first place. And if it was necessary, then whether certain investigation should have been done in the light of the fact that this fellow has no ejaculation. And to prove to him that, listen, mate, you're not ejaculating for other reasons, and operating on the cyst is not going to make you better. Because of his voiding symptoms, maybe, they operate on the cyst, and that's a different issue. And has the voiding improved? That's a different call.
Yes.
There are two issues here that you have to address. Let me also tell you that on routine scanning and transrectal ultrasound for a lot of young men, people do report prostatic cyst. My strong advice would be, don't touch it. Don't touch it in a young, unmarried male. Unless you have very, 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 very solid reasons to fiddle around in that area. You must be very careful. Because assume that that's causing a lot of the may not be. So please identify what the issue is before you do something. Because now you are in deep trouble. I have told a story to some of my colleagues here about a senior urologist who was taken to court because the patient said that after the cyst deroofing he cannot ejaculate and he was having retrograde ejaculation. You know? And they blamed this fellow, and it was settled out of court.
Yes.
The urologist is a very close friend. Anyway, so be careful. This is a side, but look at the issue now. You've got a large cystic cavity there, sitting just underneath the bladder neck.
If you look at his symptoms, Priyanku,
Yes.
he has two sets. One is the voiding symptoms, and the second set consists again of two symptoms. One is an ejaculation, and the second is painful orgasm.
Painful.
Right? So
Yes.
we said we will leave the voiding symptoms aside because we can deal with them separately. But this is something we have to resolve. Dr. Ganesh just mentioned that case. You do all the deroofing, desysting, whatever else you want to do, and you find that that fellow is not better. Why could that be? Why is it that even after that mammoth exercise of excising the cyst by whichever route, he's not better? He says, I've still got pain and I still don't have an ejaculate. This is very basic anatomical principles. Just apply that, you'll get the answer. See, if he has got painful orgasms, it means that some muscle-lined structure is trying to push some fluid out, and that fluid is not going out. It is like a ureteric colic.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So that has its own implications. In addition, if he's got an ejaculation, it means there is no anatomical path for the semen and its contents to come into the prostatic urethra. The two may be connected, may not be connected, or what is your opinion?
There is connection, sir. The obstruction is at the level of both openings.
We have to assume connection because the two are related.
Yes.
Right? So now, will this cyst, if deroofed and removed, will it relieve the symptoms? Will it give him an ejaculate? And will it relieve his painful orgasm? Or do we give him a guarded prognosis and say you might not be better? In which case he'll say, then do something which will make me better.
So, transrectal drainage of the cyst we can try and
Correct.
see if he can improve the symptoms.
He doesn't. He says he doesn't. We have to be a little careful about this transrectal drainage also.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, it's not an easy procedure and it's not a procedure without complications beyond our control.
Yes.
For an abscess in an emergency situation, that might be a good and easy option.
Yes.
But here we are dealing with a non-infected benign cyst, probably congenital.
If this patient's problem was an ejaculation, we said no voiding problems and ejaculation. We are leaving aside the voiding problem at the moment because they can be easily evaluated with a Euroflow and a CMG and all the rest of it. And many of these patients may not have actually serious voiding disturbance, which requires you to do something to that cyst and improve the voiding. You have to address the issue of an ejaculation here. When he's not ejaculating, you have to find out whether there is a blockage in the pathway of the seminal fluid. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. So how do you, before you deroof the cyst, you have to convince yourself that that pathway is intact. You can't take semen for analysis because he's not able to produce any semen.
Producing, yes.
So you have to do some other maneuvers, isn't it?
There are some images here. Let's run through those images, see if you can get some information. No, not histopathology, the image result. Yeah, stay there. There was something before, an MRI report, wasn't there? No? Okay.
MRI, ultrasound and MRI.
Yeah, this is ultrasound.
Yes. Shows a large simple cyst in posterior aspect, 4.9 by 5.7 centimeters, which is communicating with the prostatic urethra. With the cyst has got internal echoes. So,
Say MCL open.
Yeah, whatever you've got.
Vigneshwaran location. We are given him a slot also for this talk.
So this we had seen.
yes.
Was anything else done other than the CT?
MRI was done, but the films are.
Do
no.
we have the report?
Yes.
Show him the MRI report.
Yes, sir. The MRI report shows the finding of a large cystic lesion, oblong cystic lesion in midline prostate, extending above the prostate. So measurement is 7.1 by 6.5 by 5 centimeter. There is mass effect on posterior wall of bladder, suspicious small communication with prostatic urethra. Seminal vesicles are normal as per report, and there is no diffusion restriction, means no evidence of any suspicious malignancy. So it since here the finding gives it is large lesion in the midline prostate. So present in midline is one reason. It could be obstructing both the opening of the ejaculatory ducts.
There is something very interesting in the very first line of the report.
Extending above the prostate.
First line, the first
Large.
few words.
Large oblong.
Next two words.
Cystic lesion in the midline prostate.
No. So what pathologies can give rise to an oblong cystic lesion? But anyway, we'll come back to this later. Now, this is what the MRI has shown. What next? Do you have any help regarding whether de-roofing or whatever you want to do to the cyst will help the patient's in ejaculation? That is the crux of the matter.
How will you find out? How will you find out whether this cyst has got any connection with the ejaculatory apparatus? They have said here seminal vesicles are normal.
Yes. Sir.
If this cyst is rising above the prostate, it is going outside, growing outside.
Yes.
Huh?
Sir, the cystic fluid was analyzed, sir. So if there is any connection with the...
No. Priyanku, you're missing your way. You're missing your way. Anatomically, there is a nice description. Oblong midline structure extending above the prostate. And the key is the seminal vesicles are not turgid, they're not distended. Which means the seminal vesicle and their ducts are okay, they're not obstructed.
Not obstructed.
Yes.
So the cyst may have nothing to do with this.
Ejaculatory problems.
May have, but he is complaining to you. So you have to find out where is he ejaculating. One thing you must remember, when you do an endoscopic procedure on the urethra or something at the level of the bladder neck, it is virtually permanent. It's very difficult to undo. That is why everybody hesitates to cut the bladder neck in a young male.
Injury to the sphincter, sir, internal sphincter.
Forget the sphincter. So you have to be sure that what you want to do in that area endoscopically, that you will be able to retrieve the situation. And at best, the only thing that works endoscopically in that particular area is actually a true obstruction to the ejaculated ducts, where transurethally you can go and fish out a stone, or you can deep it and you find the seminal fluid is gushing out. Those are all very rare situations, and these diagnoses are made by beautiful transrectal ultrasounds, where they will show you a stone in the ejaculated duct. You would have seen it at all the workshops, and they are showing these when you go to some of these sessions where they show videos.
Rupin Shah must have demonstrated this a few thousand times.
I've seen from MRD's unit also they have shown.
Correct.
These are not something that you see every day of your life, but these are there, and this is how you evaluate them. So if you have to evaluate this patient and find out whether this large cyst has got anything to do with this seminal pathway, then you have to prove it before you put knife to skin and deroof the damn thing endoscopically. If you aspirate this cyst and find that there is no sperm in it at all,
it's very unlikely you will find any sperm in it.
yes,
Because the MRI gives us a good picture. See, any oblong midline structure extending above the prostate with communication to the prostatic urethra is a persistent Mullerian structure unless proven otherwise by histopathology.
Okay, sir.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Actually, the patient's it was not connected to the urethra. The deroofing was done.
That's also possible because MRI, they said there's a small opening, there's a small communication with the prostatic urethra, which
That
we
is
may
after
not
the
find
deroofing.
grossly. Sorry?
That was after the deroofing.
Right.
you mean this MRI is done after the deroofing?
This MRI.
It's dated
Yeah.
29th of
Yeah.
January.
Yes, sir. After
January
the deroofing.
21 after.
Because the first cyst deroofing was done about 1 year before.
2019.
2019. This is done after deroofing. The communication is the made by us. It's an iatrogenic.
No, I don't understand. If they're saying that there is a small opening, it
Yes,
does
sir.
not suggest that it is a small opening endoscopically, because endoscopically there's a large opening there.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying this MRI was done before the endoscopy?
No, sir. This was done after the deroofing.
But the endoscopic picture that you showed a large cavity.
Yes, sir.
And then
Maybe that was because of the water flow, it is opened up so much. Maybe because of the MRI, the cyst is fully distended, so maybe the opening was not seen clearly. Just an incision was made. It was like a flip. So once the flow is there, it will be opening widely. But in MRI, the cyst is completely filled up. So maybe that is the reason why it is not seen, or the opening is not seen that much big.
For me, the more interesting thing is that oblong shape.
Yes, sir.
Oblong shape going above the prostatic urethra.
It was just above the veru. It was just above the veru.
No, endoscopically. But MRI, it is going above the prostatic urethra and is indenting the posterior wall of the bladder. So when we correlate anatomically, this fits in with the uterus.
Yes, sir.
You look at the lateral images of the MRI. There are some lateral images. You will see that this thing is going behind. If you see these
CT images.
MRI films are not there, sir.
Even on the CT, it shows the reconstruction, lateral reformatted.
I thought I just saw it. Yes.
This. Look at this.
See that how it is going. Right outside it is going. The standard utricle cysts or Mullerian cysts are much smaller. This is a large one. They said 7 centimeters. And see how on the MRI,
And they don't project above the prostatic margins.
look at it going. Yes.
So when you read up about this,
Guys, the hormonal profile is all right. FSH and all that.
yeah, LH, progestogen,
FSH all normal because you know the
I don't think, no, I think we have not done it, sir. No, we have not done it.
now we need to look at all that.
Yeah, yes,
We
sir.
need to look at his urinary hormones, progestogens particularly. We need to look at LH, and we need to look at serum progestogens and testosterone.
Yes, sir. We'll do it.
The only other
I just joined. The management is not discussed, right, sir?
No, we haven't discussed.
Okay.
So, Priyanku,
Sir.
coming back to you and to the rest of the team, this isn't as simple as it appeared prima facie,
Yes, sir.
right? Now, looking at the anatomical nature and location, this appears to be a persistent Mullerian structure, a rudimentary uterus, which is large enough to go above the prostate, indent the bladder posteriorly, and therefore there is always a risk that it will keep filling up with urine. In
Yes.
fact, we have once the dubious distinction of doing an SPC into the structure. It was so
Okay.
large and was displacing the bladder, we thought we'd put in the trocar into the bladder, and then when we did the dye study, we found it was in the uterus. We got
Yes.
lucky there, but I'm saying this because if it is a large Mullerian structure, even if it is not causing problems now, it will in future, and so that requires excision, and that excision is usually done transabdominally, so that you identify the structure in the abdomen, see where the gonads are, whether there are any rudimentary gonads. If they are present, then they have to be sent for histology, look for the tubes, and then the entire package is dissected down to the prostatic urethra. We don't open the urethra, but we go down to the prostate and then excise this whole package.
No, sir. Actually, the prostatic urethra is open now.
Yeah,
Because of
I
the
know.
urophane.
I'm
It's
saying
already
if
open.
we can't find the prostatic urethra, we don't dig into the prostatic tissue to find the urethra. We go until we have reached a dead end in the prostate and then excise this whole thing.
what we
Af-
remember in this case is also remember this fellow had an orchidopexy, I think. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yes, sir. He was
Right
done
side
in-
of
Histology. Is that an ovotestis?
unfortunately, they
biopsy
didn't
is
do
not done.
histology.
Yeah, see, when
Sir,
you
this patient was-
with all these issues and ejaculation, days, and everything,
Yeah.
it's not just a straightforward you do it. That's why I told the guys, don't, for God's sake, in a young unmarried male, anything in that area, please, before you put knife to skin, make sure you've crossed all
Sir,
the
the
dotted.
orchidopexy was done in Vedanam, sir.
Yeah, whatever.
I think biopsy, the patient doesn't have any biopsy report.
Not to worry.
But retrospectively, we have to do a biopsy. That is the
No,
point
we
taken from
we
this.
can do an MRI. See,
Yeah.
biopsy, the problem is where to do the biopsy from.
Mm.
We can do an imaging first to see how the testis looks, whether it's normal or whether it is variegated, or there are two different sets of tissues in the
Age
testis.
of his orchidopexy to know whether he has started ejaculating.
Yes, sir.
That is
Sir,
important.
actually, this patient, the challenge was I was afraid that once I remove the cyst, the communication between the prostatic urethra can cause a leak inside the abdomen. So that was a major fear for me. So actually, when we derooted the cyst, the seminal vesicle was in part of the posterior wall of the cyst.
Yes.
Yes. Seminal vesicle was in the posterior wall of the cyst. And I discussed this with Ganesh sir before management. Ganesh sir told if you can try perineal, but I was not very confident through perineal. So I went direct into this thing and then bivalved the bladder and went into the bladder neck. I thought I can take a stitch through the bladder neck, that prostatic urethral opening. But subsequently, the bladder neck was not that open. So I don't want to. Geoparadise is continent mechanism by disturbing transperineal, the external sphincter will be the geoparadise, and transvesical, the bladder neck will be this. So I thought of going posterior. I opened the cyst, deroofed it, cauterized all the cyst wall, and I did a cystoscopy through the bladder neck, and I could see the opening with the cystoscopy view. I used a sacrospinous fixation needle, which is a little bend in the lateral side. So I took suture from the posterior bladder wall, that is the cyst, opening of the cyst, transcystic, that opening was seen. And I just took with that curved needle. It's like a Turner Warwick needle, but Turner Warwick needle will be straight bend, but this will be little bend on the lateral side. So I took stitch with vision from the cystoscope, which was done through the bladder neck. So with that, I could approximate the opening, and I was little fear because there could be some leak through that, and transabdominally there could be leak in the urine. So I kept the drain for a long time, and as Ganesh sir also suggested me to keep the catheter for a longer time. So we kept it for about 4 weeks. And then the drain also was there. And subsequently, after 4 weeks, I removed the catheter, hoping that there should not be any leak. Then it was patient passed urine well, no obstruction, no pain, and all the symptoms which was there before has disappeared. And the drain, I just kept it for 2 more days after the catheter removal. And the patient came after 2 days. Drain was nil, so I removed the drain also. Now the patient is perfectly okay.
So you did a marsupialization of that cystic structure into the bladder?
No, sir. I just no. I opened the bladder. I tried going through the bladder neck to close that opening, but I was not able. So I just put a cystoscope to guide the suture. Okay. But the cyst was opened separately, retrovesical.
Okay, right.
And I excised the cyst as much as possible.
It. Fine, because that is the key. The key is that it has to be excised.
Yes, I excised it, and little bit of mucosa, what was seen as was cauterized. And I could see the seminal vesicle behind that, which was left behind.
What was the histopathology, sir?
Histopathology, nothing, sir. Shubham?
Yes, sir.
Shubham, what was the histopathology report? Yeah, okay.
Cyst wall line, squamous epithelium.
Yeah, usually the lining is squamous because by this time urine would have gone in and all the columnar epithelium would have gone away. If they had found some myometrium in the wall, that would have given us an indication, but perhaps we didn't particularly look for it.
But there was no remnants, sir. Mullerian, that remnants was not there. Nothing were there. Usually you will have a nubbin tissue, nubbin tissue, that area.
No, actually, Dr. Prabhakar, you see, this whole thing, to my thinking, I don't know what others think, is the Mullerian remnant, which you have excised.
Okay. If suppose the cyst was not there, it could have been like an nubbin tissue.
Yeah, it would have come to our notice at all because he would have been voiding normally and he might not have had an ejaculation.
Correct.
Issue is, has his ejaculatory problem settled?
He didn't ejaculate, sir, just 1 week before I removed the catheter. But the main problem was whenever he passes urine, he had severe pain because the cyst was filling up. That pain has disappeared. And of course, ejaculation, he can't do it. I've told him clearly that he cannot do ejaculation because that part is totally obstructed. But since his testis is there, I reassured him that we'll do a hormonal study, and if that is there, primary testicular failure is not there, then we might use for PISA and go for a ICSI or something like that. Because the right testis is smaller, maybe only with the left testis we can stand for fertility. But his erection is good. Even with after the surgery, with the catheter, he was having erections. That was his complaint mainly. I was a little worried because of the perineal, that area I was meddling. But with the catheter, his erection was good. He had early morning erections with catheter. So just 1 week before, so I've asked him to come after 2 weeks, and then I'll ask him about the ejaculation.
You can perhaps wait even for a little longer and then reevaluate the testes and
Yes,
the epididymis vas
Yes.
to see what the status is. And
Epididymis vas is felt, sir. Epididymis vas is
not felt, whether it is turgid.
Okay.
If you're thinking of PISA
Obstruction.
or a MISA, to decide which one to do, you can do that. And the right testis should be evaluated with imaging.
We must also remember that patients who do have undescended testes, the testis which appears apparently normal, the opposite side, may not actually be 100% normal.
Correct.
So, that is something that we need to take into account. It's known in undescended testes.
So should we? But he's unmarried, sir. So what to do? Like, should we take a biopsy before and?
No, you can counsel him about all this. And if he says, I want evaluation before marriage, you can do a testicular biopsy before marriage.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
FSH will indicate to you significant.
Yes, sir.
It's a
primary testicular failure. Yeah.
But if it's,
then there is no use of
doing anything. There's no use. It's not, But the ejaculatory problem will not be solved. One way to solve this ejaculatory problem is there are some patients, we have to treat them like patients who have paraplegia, or they do have ejaculatory problems, and there the electroejaculator helps. Late Murli used to do this for some of the patients.
Yes, sir.
And he had this
But the problem here is it's obstructed, sir, probably.
We don't know. We don't know it's obstructed. If it is obstructed, the seminal vein would have been turgid. It is being shown.
Correct. That was normal, and Veru was so big also. Like Veru was very prominent.
Many of these patients who do have an ejaculation, the organic reasons are very few. Quite a lot of them are actually related to a psychological issue. So
and autonomic dysfunction.
Some form of dysfunction there. So sometimes this electroejaculation, if it works, it is done under general anesthesia, and if we are able to produce some sperm, then that can be sent for analysis or whatever else you want to do. So that's one way out of the problem here. Now that you have allowed this thing to settle, it has healed nicely, because this is quite a painful thing to do. So
it is done under anesthesia. You can't do it in a awake patient.
It is under anesthesia. So,
therefore, to conclude, it may be reasonable to say, for the moment, his urinary symptoms have all been resolved. His anejaculation has not been resolved. He will be counseled from now on that further evaluation for anejaculation and testicular status will be necessary to assess fertility potential. The best time to do that would be after he has reached the age of marriage, and when he wants to know whether he can start looking around, or his family wants to know whether they can start looking around.
He's already 24, isn't it? How old is he?
19. So at that time, carry out this complete evaluation. For the time being, perhaps an FSH would be reasonable in 2 weeks' time, because that will give a good idea about what counseling to do.
Shubham, was the FSH done? Any idea? I just forgot.
No, sir, not done, sir.
Not done, okay.
Because if the FSH is elevated,
we can
straight away you have the answers.
Yes, sir.
You can tell them this is how it is.
I have another suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Use the COVID situation and stall for time.
Exactly.
Stall for time. Let things heal. Let nature take its course in certain situations. You will be surprised.
Yes, sir. Maybe.
Nothing is lost, really. I mean, we are anxious, but as far as the biology goes, nothing is lost.
Correct.
Okay, then. Thank you, folks. Very interesting
Thank you,
case,
sir.
Dr.
That crow
Prabhakar.
near your window,
Thank you.
Manmohan? That crow?
Sorry?
That crow is near your window?
No, I'm not expecting you to drop in. It's nice to hear birds, and I think that's because there is no traffic on the road. Otherwise, we wouldn't have heard these fellows.
Very good.
Thank you all. Nice case, Dr. Prabhakar. Excellent. Please keep bringing these cases. And it's also nice to see your residents get into the groove and start participating. We'll all meet next week. All of you stay safe, take care, and have a good productive week.